In this video, I'm going to show you two different ways of taking an image or a graphic, bringing it into Blender, and then exporting it out to Flight Sim 2020. So to start off with, I'm going to get rid of the camera, the light source, and the cube. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, and this is the easiest method that I know of taking an image and putting it into the sim. So we come up to the left upper here, click Add, go down where it says Image, and click on Images as Planes. Okay, so now we're going to come over and we're going to get an image. We're going to take this image right here, double click it, and it's going to put down a flat plane here. In order to see the image, we're going to come up to the top and go from viewport shading display in solid mode to viewport shading display in material preview mode. And there's our image. So I'm going to take that image and I'm going to flip it up so it's upright. So I'm going to hit R for rotate, X for the X-axis, type 90 on my keyboard, and hit Enter. And then I'm going to go to straight on view, which would be the negative Y-axis, which if you want to go change views, if you'll notice that when you move your image around, you're going to have these indicators here, and if you want to go straight to an axis, you can just click on one like negative Y. It's going to go straight on. As you can see here, the red line here, that's ground level. So if we put it into the sim right now, half of it's going to be sticking into the ground, and you could potentially lose it in the ground and not be able to see it. So we're going to select it by either drawing a box around it, or you can hit the letter A, that's a select all. Going to come up to move, going to move it above ground level. And that's it. You're done. You can take it right now and import it into the sim by coming over to your menu on the side here, click in, and you can go down and you can export it right now. But I'm going to show you another way that is going to use the texture, applying a texture method. Because you may not just want it as a flat plane, you may want it on an object such as a billboard or a flat surface of your choice. Say you're creating a building, you can go ahead and put the image on the building and then just export the whole works. Or you can do it separately like this. So I'm going to delete that, start a new. So this time I'm going to get rid of the camera and the light source, but we're going to keep the cube here because that's what we're going to make a billboard out of. So the first thing I'm going to do is come up to the upper right, click on collection because I want to change the name. Otherwise, when you export it out, it's going to be called collection. You don't want that. I'm going to call this billboard 1. And then you can change the name of the cube here too. You know, you could double click and call that billboard frame if you want to do that. If you get a lot of objects and every one of them's named cube, that would get confusing pretty quick. So the first thing we're going to do, I like to use x-axis as my reference point. And then I'm going to come over here to Scene Properties, click on Units, change it from the default metric to imperial because I like things measured out in feet. So it always starts with it right in the center with ground level going through the center. So what I'm going to do here is select move. I'm going to bring it up about there for right now. And I'm going to size it to the correct dimensions that I want. So go over to the side menu, hit N. Okay, and here's the actual size of it. It's 6.5 feet on each side. So, and the vertical, I'm going to change it to 10 feet because your typical roadside billboard is around 10 by 22. So I'm going to type 10, hit enter. I'm going to make it 22 feet wide. And I'm going to make it about half a foot deep. So that would be 0.5. Okay, now if you notice here, the scales changed. They were 1:1, and now they're not the same. Watching other people build Blender objects for the sim, they always want to keep this at 1:1. There could be a technical reason why. Maybe it shows up funky in the sim. I don't know what the reasons are. I just do like they do, and it usually works fine. So the way you change that back to 1:1 is you come up to Object, click Object, come down to Apply, All Transforms. And it changes everything back to 1:1, but it keeps your dimensions how you had it set. And periodically you'll have to come through and do that. So I'm going to go back onto the straight on view here, and I'm going to bring it up. Sorry for the interruption. Let's see, where was I? Okay, I'm going to take the billboard and I'm going to bring it up around 12 feet or so over ground level. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right about even with the X there. Okay, so now we've got that. We can just use this for our backing for our graphic, you know, and put it up against the side of a building or a hangar. or we can actually make a billboard, you know, like a roadside style, which is what I'm going to do here. So you can either add this part or not. So I'm going to go back over to the cursor there. If you'll notice this cursor down here, that's this right here. Wherever that cursor is set, when you bring in another object, it's going to go to where that's set. So it always starts, the default's always right in the center, but you can move it for other purposes, but we're going to leave it there. So I'm going to come up to Add, Mesh. I'm going to come down where it says Cylinder. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to put a cylinder down. And it's 2 feet long and 2 feet around, so I'm going to make that 14 feet tall. And I'm going to give it a diameter of 1 foot. And then coming over here to side view, which would be Y here, I'm going to click move, and I'm going to bring it up to where it meets the bottom of the billboard. You can scroll in so you can really get it right on the money here. And that leaves a little bit sticking in the ground, because when you bring it into the sim, you don't, due to like glitches and variations of the terrain, sometimes you can have objects floating slightly over the ground even when it's got the snap to ground checked. So this will ensure that it's actually in the ground. And you can see when we made our pole here, it changed the scale again. So I'm going to hit A. That selects everything on the screen. Go to Object, Apply, All Transforms. Puts everything back like a 1-to-1 ratio here. So now we've got our basic billboard. I'm not going to do any other fancy things to it because that's not what this video is about. So now we're ready to put a texture, not a texture, but an image or a graphic onto it, but it's going to be applied as a texture. And this is the same method that is used when you're building a hangar or a building. It's the same method, but instead of a building, it's just a billboard. Same principle though. So the first thing we're going to do there is we're going to select the billboard. We don't want the pole selected, only the billboard. We're going to come up to UV editing. I'm going to click on that, and now you're going to get a split screen here. So in order to unwrap it, first we got to unwrap it. And it was unwrapped here, but it wasn't unwrapped how I want it. So we're going to click on UV. Well, first we're going to select it. We have to do that in object mode here. Go back to object mode. Okay, now it's selected. And we're also going to come over and change that viewport shading from solid to material preview. Otherwise you won't see the texture when you bring it in. Bring it down a little bit. Okay, let's go back to object edit mode. And we're going to select face select. And what you got here is if you got it on vertex select, then each one of those little dots is a vertex. If you collect on edge, then each thing you select is going to be an edge. If you can see it being selected, turning right, but we want face select. So now we're just gonna highlight the whole thing for right this second, for the first part of this. Okay, come up to UV, select Smart UV Project. Oh, and by the way, from what I understand, UV doesn't stand for ultraviolet, which is what I thought at first. I didn't know what it stood for, but apparently it's not that. I saw it, but I don't know why they call it UV. Select Smart UV Project. I like to click on Scale to Bounds, so it's going to put it all within this outer square here. Okay, so now you've got two large parts, and you've got the edges. These are the edges here that you see of the faces here. And you can click each one of these faces separately. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a side and call that the front. So we've got just that one face selected. So now, in order to bring in an image, I'm going to come down here to Material Properties. I'm going to scroll all the way down here, and I'm going to click on MSFS Material Params. I'm going to change that from disabled to standard. I'm going to scroll down some more, and we're going to come to the textures menu here. Now all this is pretty confusing, and I don't really know what each one of these does. Like blend mask, I've never used it. I don't even know what it does exactly. But we're not going to use textures that have multiple different parts of the texture. It's just going to be one graphic as the texture. So we're going to click on Base Color, Open. And I've already created a graphic in a paint program that I'm going to use on there as my roadside billboard. So I'm going to come over to where I've got it. I've got it under Downloads. I'm going to change that to List View. I call this Cessna School. Double click it. Okay. And there we have this view over here. So we're going to come over to the left window, and I'm going to scroll back here. Now if you don't see this graphic come up, sometimes you can come up here and click this image pin and it'll show up. Sometimes it won't show up unless you click that. This time it happened to show up. So this face here, this is what you see right here. I'm going to select it. That's that face right here. It's not this side. It's not this side. But if you'll notice something funky here, it wrapped the whole billboard, which is not really what you want. Even though I could manipulate this and have each face look correct, but the edges are still going to look funky, and it's really hard to do anything about it. So this is not really the best way to do it. I'm just showing you this, you know, that this is what you could encounter, but I'm going to show you how I avoid this. So I'm going to back out, go back to layout up here, and what I'm going to do is make these faces separate selections so they're independent of the actual billboard frame, and then the graphic won't interfere with the frame. So how you do that is you first you're going to select the billboard frame, and you can either click on it like that, or you can come over to the right up here and you could click on it that way also. But you don't want the pole selected, only this billboard section. Okay, now we're going to go from object mode to edit mode, and we can either use the menu up here and do that, or we can use the shortcut tab. Okay, so now I'm in edit mode here, and you want this, if it isn't already, you want it to use face select. You know, sometimes the default is going to be vertex select. Come over to the face select and make sure that the face is highlighted as compared to the rest of it. And we want to duplicate that. So I'm going to hit Shift D. That duplicates it, and then if you move the mouse you can see that it's selected, but don't click on anything, because once you move it and click, it'll be out of position. So hit Escape, so it puts it back, and without hitting any other key, hit the letter P. Okay, and you'll get this little window here, and then you want to click on Selection. And if you come over to the right, you can see it made a new selection, and it's called Billboard Frame .001, and each time you duplicate it, it's going to add another number to the end. So I'm going to change that. Double click on it, and I'm going to change that to Billboard Front. Okay, so now we've got two faces there, and we want to get rid of the original face, because if you leave it there, it can cause a bleed through situation where you'll actually see some bleed through on there. We don't want that. So we're going to go back to object mode, and we want to select just the billboard frame, but we want to hide the one that we just made. So I'm going to come up to this, and I'm going to click on the eyeball looking thing here, and it's going to hide that one duplicate of the face here while we get rid of this face. So we're going to click on the billboard frame here. I'm going to go back into edit mode. We're going to select the face. We're going to right click, hit delete faces, and that got rid of that face, and you can see it's gone now. Now if we go back up to the duplicate one, the one called billboard front, we can click on that symbol right there, and it'll put it back like it was. So now we've got two different objects or selections or whatever they call that. We got the frame and we got a front here. So we want to do the same thing to the back side. So go back to object mode. No, actually we can stay here. We can just click on this face. Yeah, we can just stay here. I'm going to hit Shift D for duplicate, escape, P, click on selection, and we look over to the right and we've created another selection. And since we renamed it, it's going to call that one the same thing as before, .001. So we're going to rename that to billboard back. And now we've got to do the same operation again. I'm going to hide the new one. I'll go ahead and hide the one called front too. Okay, now we got to come back out of edit mode, go into object mode, hit tab, select billboard back. Let's see, wait a minute, let me come back down here. Let me back up here. In object mode, I'm going to select billboard frame. That's what I did. I selected the wrong one. I'm going to select, because it puts it in alphabetical order, so it changed order on me when I wasn't looking. So I'm going to click on billboard frame. Okay. And go to edit mode. And now I'm going to hide the back and the front. Okay. Confusing, isn't it? I confuse myself sometimes. I hope you can follow this. So right now we've got just the billboard frame selected. And you can see this would have been the front. So this is the back. So we need to get rid of that face. So I'm going to highlight it, right click, delete faces. And you can see now all we have is the frame showing. So we can show the other two. And you can either come over to the side and click each one like that, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Alt-H. Sometimes that works. Apparently this time it didn't. If you want to hide a face with the shortcuts, let's see, you can click on the edit object mode here. I want to click just the billboard back. Okay, and I clicked H for hide, and you can see it hit it here. And to undo it, you can hit Alt-H. There. Okay, so now we've got the billboard frame. We got a front and a back. So now we're going to put our graphic on the front and then the back. So I'm going to select, while we're in object mode, I'm going to select the front here, which is right here. We're going to go to UV editing. And I'm going to get rid of that because it's a leftover from before. Okay, so now I'm going to select that face, come up to UV here, click on UV, go to Smart UV Project, click OK, and it's going to fill that square up. So now we can come down and reload our image graphic that I made in another paint program. So we're going to click on Open, Base Color, Open. Go to where I had it downloaded. Okay. So now you can see, remember how I said last time, sometimes it doesn't show up here on the left. Go up and click that image pen, and there we go. So I'm going to zoom back. And there's our image, and it's already lined up pretty much, but as you can see over on the right here, it's pointing the wrong direction. So how do we fix that? So I'm going to make sure this box is selected over on the left here, and put your cursor inside the box here. If you have it over here somewhere else, it's not going to work. So have it inside the box that you've got selected. Hit R for rotate, type 90, hit enter. Okay, now it's the correct orientation, but it's still doesn't look right. So what we got to do, we got to resize this box, and we're going to line that box up to fit the graphic here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over and select Scale, and going to grab this cursor thing here, whatever they call that, bring it over to where I can get it as close to the edges as I can without overlapping too much. If you overlap just a little, it doesn't hurt anything. If you don't have it enough, then of course it won't fill up the billboard. You don't want to really go way crazy, because then all your image is not on there. So you want to get as close as you can. Sometimes just before you can let go of the button, it moves again on you. Okay. Now we got to do it in the vertical here. Same thing. As close as we can. Fill the box up here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then we'll come over to the right, and we'll just click off the select. And you can see now we've got an image. Of course, you see it's still on the back. That's a leftover. I'll show you how to fix that in just a second. So we got it on the back here. So that looks pretty good. So let's go back to layout. And we're going to turn it around here. And we're going to select the back. Let's go ahead and select the frame, and I'll show you how to get rid of the image on the edges. Select frame, come down to material properties, click on this X right here, and we'll get rid of that. And now when we go back in this, you won't have a image on the back of the thing there. You can also do that on the billboard back here. Get rid of that. Okay, now that we got the billboard back selected, come back up to UV editing. And you can see it cleaned everything up here. So now we're going to put our image on the back here. So we can get rid of that because it's going to put it up there again. Click on X there. Alright, now we're going to select. Probably going to have to go back into object mode and it stayed selected over here on the shading, so that's good. Go back to edit. Make sure you got that face selected. Go to UV, Smart UV Project. That's still highlighted. Click OK. And we just repeat the same process as the other side. Go down to Material Properties. Click on New. Scroll down. Change it from Disabled to Standard. Scroll down some more. And put our graphic in just like we did before. And we need to click on that image pin. There we go. Select that box. And we need to rotate this one. So while the cursor is in that, go back up and click on it. While it's in there, hit R, 90, enter, and we do the same thing we did before. Go to scale. And now we got a graphic on both sides. Now let me tell you something about in order for the graphics to work right in the sim, the sim is real picky about compiling images. If it's not a size that agrees with it, whenever you try to compile it into your package, it's going to error out. And it'll show you an error. It may not exactly tell you why it's an error, but most of the time the reason it's going to be is this, the size. And the rule of thumb is that the image that you're using needs to be divisible by 4. That's usually the rule of thumb. Now that's not always the case. Sometimes it can be divisible by 4 and it still not work. So my suggestion is to use images that are going to be like 1024 by 1024 or 512 by 512 or 2048 by 2048, or you can mix it up, 2048 by 1024. Or that Ferrari picture, it was 1600 by 1800. Nice round, even pixel sizes will work. If you get an oddball one, odd numbers, oddball, 1874 by, whatever. It could error out and not work, even if it is divisible by 4. So you may have to experiment. And if you pull an image up, and you can use Blender doesn't care. It'll export it out. But when you go to to compile your package, it may not work. So if you have an image already that you want to use, and it's an oddball size, you have to take it into the paint package of your choice and then change it, rescale it and change it to something that the sim's going to like. Also, the sim will take PNGs and it will take JPGs, but the PNG is a more versatile one that normally won't give you any trouble. Sometimes when you're using a JPG, in some cases it may not do what you want. So I suggest always changing it to a PNG in a paint program. So there we have it. Now we can take that into the sim. So I'm going to go back to layout, and in order to see it, we got to change our viewpoint shading over. There we go. And you can see that the pole and the frame are just completely stark white. So if you want to jazz that up a little, we can come over here. We'll select the frame here. Come down to Material Properties, click New, and we can change that right here. Or you could go down, you could change it down in the MSFS params too, but since we're not going to do anything special with it, like giving it an emissive color and all that, stuff, and we can do that up here. Click on Base Color, and you can either give it a color with the wheel, or you can come over here and change the tint down here to where, make it more of a gray so it looks more like a piece of steel or aluminum or something. And you can even come down here and change those parameters. If you wanted to make it look like a metal frame, there are other parameters that I'm not going to get into here that can change the sheen and if it looks like a rough surface or a shiny surface and so forth. I want to do the same thing with the pole here. So there we have it. Now we can take that and put it into the sim. So we're going to come over to, and we checked our scale here. Everything looks good on that. Nothing's changed there. So we're going to select all by hitting A, or you could just draw a box around it. Going to come over to multi-export. Bring the menu out slightly here. Click on Grouped by Collections, Generate XML, Overwrite GUID if you want, Billboard. We're going to pick our folder. I'm going to use the library package. Where did I put? Okay, go to Windows, Steam Games, excuse me. There it is right there, Tutorial Scenery Library. Click on that. Click Accept. And I'm going to bring up File Explorer here. Come down here, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to export it to right here. So I'm going to click on export. And this time it gave me 4 files. You're always going to have the .bin, a .gltf, and a .xml. This time it also gave us a graphic texture. So we're going to copy these 3. Copy and go to tutorial library. We want to go to package sources, and I changed the my library package around a little bit from the last video. I was having trouble. I tested it with the texture part, and it had trouble finding the pathway, so I don't know what I did, but somehow I screwed up the texture pathway, so I redid it, and also got rid of some of the nested folders. There were way too many nested folders, so now I've got just that tutorial model lib, and I changed the object folder. I just call it objects, and you can see I've already got the one in there that I did to test out the one with the Ferrari on the plane. So I went ahead and did that before we started, so you wouldn't have to see this process twice. So I want to paste, put our other 3 in there, billboard 1, there's 3 of them. Now you can configure your export menu over here to put it right here in the objects, but when you get a lot of scenery and this thing is slam full and you want to check to see if it generated correctly, you know, it can be a pain to come over here and try to find it. That's why I exported it and then manually moved it over. So let's go back up. And now we want to move the PNG texture or graphic, whatever they're going to call it here. Copy. And we're going to put it in our texture folder, and you can see the Ferrari is already in there. Paste. So now we're ready to go into the sim and compile our library package again to incorporate what we just did. So here we are in the sim, and we need to recompile our library package to incorporate the images that we just put in. So I'm going to come up to File, click on Open. The default's always the last place I was at. Yeah, go back. Click on the library file here. Okay, click on our XML. Wait a couple of seconds, make sure everything's loaded in there. We're just going to highlight that, and we're just going to come over and build package. And we have 0 errors. And let's look for our images here. Here's the one called Cessna School here. The image. And there's our billboard. And the other one had already been compiled, the one with the Ferrari, so it's not going to show up this time. But if your image was a size that it did not agree with, this is where it's going to come up with your error. This will be an error, and it'll say something about the image did not compile. It won't tell you why. It'll just say it didn't compile. That's probably the reason why. It didn't like the size pixels that you had chosen for it. So we can close this. And we're going to go back out of the sim. And now we're out of the sim. We bring back up our package here. We're going to go to packages. There's our package we just compiled. Going to copy. And I'm going to go over to where I have my community folder. I'm going to paste. There it is. So now we go start the sim up, and then we can see if what we did worked. So here we are for the final time, and I'm going to pick an airport to put our images down, and it'll be this one here that I'm already sitting at. Open project, go to the airport here, which is this one. Wait for everything to generate again. This is a lot of scenery around here. Sometimes it takes a minute. Love the way the plane falls. Oh goody. It's always fun. It'll be here in a second. Uh-oh, looks like I forgot to take the image down from last time here. When I tested it. Okay, it looks like it's stable now, so we'll come over here. I'll click on this and I'll delete it. Okay. So let's say it wasn't up there, right? And we want to try it out for the first time, right? So click on scenery, click on all, and I'm going to search billboard. And this is the one with the Ferrari, so we'll click on it. One click placing. And I'm going to click off snap to ground. See if I can select it here, grab it here, rotate it. And it's not very big. This was 16 by 1800. You can see it's pretty small. So let's scale it up a little here. Let's go like 3 times. Get lined up with the wall here. And you can see it's just a flat plane, and you can see it both sides. One side usually is more clear, the reverse side usually is duller. We can can stick it up. We're going to put it as close to the wall as we can. And there you got just a flat plane. So now let's put down the other billboard. So we're going to fly over to the road over here in front of the airport. We're going to put our billboard down here. Oh crap, I hit the number pad 5 and it sent me back over. I hate it when it does that. Try not to hit it again. So let's try putting our billboard down. And there we go. Now you got your billboard or a sign that you can hang on the building or whatever you want to do. So there's our sign here. There's our back. And that concludes this video. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks for watching. See you next time maybe.